What's good, YouTube? It's Rico here, and I got a deck profile for more pendulum stuff because this is a fun mechanic. Anyway, so last video I made just a few weeks ago, I think, like shortly after the adjusted list came out, I was talking about how I felt like the pendulum. I don't even have a name for it anymore. It was like the Performapal Draco Slayer Magician shit and stuff like that. Like how I felt like it was still the best deck, and in some ways, I think I was catching on to stuff, but I ran into a lot of problems along the way. One of those was that the rank 4 engine's kind of weak. I feel like there aren't a lot of good rank 4s right now. And that was one problem I hit, and that was kind of fixed by like that Dynamis engine that Tyree Tinsley taught the regional with. And that just gave the deck access to Cyber Dragon Infinity again, and it also gave access to more scales, which made Second Donkey even stronger. And that, I think, helped the deck a lot, but another problem I was really having with the deck was that just I couldn't easily deal with Domain of the Monarchs, and that just made the Monarch matchup like hell. And just having to hope I just hard drew an answer to Domain, and they didn't have a way to stop me with like Ether either, which is really just being a pain in the ass. And I just felt like since the deck became a mismatch, it also just became, I felt less consistent. Maybe it's just me breaking a lot. And I just was having a lot of problems. So I decided on a whim to go back to Odd Eyes Magician. And I was playing testing tonight with my roommate who plays Monarch, and it was working really well. I think he took one game where I opened really bad. But overall, like, I switched back to Odd Eyes Magician because the deck is designed to work with its pieces because it is a theme deck. And so it's consistent, it gets to its engine pieces really well, and it inherently has an out to domain built into it, being Dragon Pit, and it has ways to protect its scales with Sky Iris and Pendulum Call, so you can just get around Karaz and just stuff like Wavering Eyes and Twin Twister and all that stuff easily just by protecting your scales. And it has a high ceiling because it's a pendulum deck, and just like I feel like it didn't really get hard nerfed at all because like all it lost was Skullcrobat Joker, so like it got a little less consistent, but overall it didn't really get nerfed, and it hasn't really changed. So I think it's still a very viable deck, if not the best deck in the game, because I think of like when I think of the decks that I think are viable in this metagame, it's Monarch, which I think this deck has a good matchup against, because as long as Domain is not on the board, I can probably get around stuff. And so there's that. And then Cosmo, if past experience is anything to go by, this deck shits on Cosmo. And then like other Pendulum decks, which is like, I don't know how that goes exactly. I'd have to play around with that. So like this could still be like the best deck in the game. I don't know. I thought that when it came out it was the best deck in the game. Nobody else did, but I did. So yeah, let's just get into it. I've been having a lot of success with it. If anything, I really enjoy Odd Eyes Magician. It's one of my favorite decks ever. So I just like playing it because it has a lot of plays, but you have to think a lot with it. So let's get into it. One inherent flaw I will say with the deck is over reliance on the first card in it, which is Dragon Pit Magician, because it's the only high scale that's not Skullcrobat Joker. So you have to play it in triplicate, and you have to make sure it doesn't like go away. So that is an inherent flaw with this deck, is over reliance on Dragon Pit Magician. But yeah, Dragon Pulse. This is pretty good now, just because like it's also an out to domain if your opponent only has one Monarch, and it can also just force your opponent to drop an Ether early if all they have is one Ether. Or if they have one Monarch on the board, and they can just it forces Ether, and then just gets rid of monster floodgates like Vanity's Fiend. And then the most important thing is that you can summon it off of Evo Illusion Magician. So yeah. So one Dragon Pit's really, it's even better now in my opinion. 3 Wisdom Eye Magicians. Probably like this is the main reason this deck is so good. It's just Wisdom Eye Magician. Honestly, if we were to get the hit that the OCG got, where this got limited to 1, this deck would probably not be good. 3 Oath Dragon Magician. It's obvious. I've done this before. I topped I got my invite at a regional with this. I didn't top because 32 is not a top. But you know, 1 Noble Dragon. I was playing 2 before. I'm playing 1 now just because with how I've restructured the deck with the extra space I have from like the Skullcrobat limits and also just tweaking around my regional list. One Noble Dragon is fine because I'm not focusing on Meteor Burst and Absolute as much, and I have other ways to get to Noble Dragon. So like you can easily search it, and it's kind of it's not a card you really want to draw. It's a card you want to search out when you need it, and you generally only use it once. So it's like I don't want to risk drawing multiple copies of it. So I think the one's fine. And still the Magicians. There's 3 Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon, the best worst card in the deck that you have to play in 3, even though fundamentally he's not that good of a card because he doesn't really help you accelerate your game. He's just your end play that you like lets you push for a lot of damage and stuff, and he just enables a lot of like even stronger plays, but he's not a consistency card. I mean, he is, but he's a really slow consistency card, so I don't like to use him as that. Although I do it a lot. But, you know, 1 Skullcrobat because Adjusted List limited him. I thought this was going to be a lot worse of a hit. Like, I've seen a notable drop in consistency in the deck. Like, I actually brick now. When I played this deck at the regional, at worst I opened slow, but nothing was an actual brick where I said this is unplayable. Sometimes I brick now with only the 1 Skullcrobat Joker, but overall, I think the deck's still very consistent, even with the only 1 Skullcrobat. 3 Magispector Unicorn. I'm not sure how I feel about this card. On paper, I feel like it's not that good anymore. Because in Monarch, like against Monarch, bouncing 1 is only good like really early game if they don't have a setup. Like if they have their plays going, stopping 1 monster is not really going to do anything to them, and they can Stormforth it away. It has applications against Cosmo for being a level 6 that lets you make rank 6s like Utopia Beyond, but you don't use it for its effect in that matchup, obviously. In the mirror and like other Pendulum decks, it's really good. So like on paper, I don't think Magispector Unicorn is that good, but in practice, every time I've seen Magispector Unicorn, it's been really helpful. So like even against my Monarch friend, I had it in my hand and I was just like, I used it as discard fodder because I was like, if this was like MST or something else instead of Magispector Unicorn, I wouldn't be winning right now. So like if anything, it's like discard fodder for like Dragon Pit and Dragon Pulse, but I also use it to make a rank 6 play tonight. So I don't know. Magispector Unicorn is probably still really good. It's just got enough versatile applications to it. Like I was considering maybe switching it to Apex Avian, but no, I like Magispector Unicorn too much. And 1 Luster, I wasn't playing Luster in my old version of the deck because I felt like Luster wasn't good in the deck, but with the changes I've made, I never want to set it as scale, but I have an easy way to make Ignister that makes it easy to pull this out of the deck for a second Ignister, and that's really the reason I play it. So, and that's all the Pendulum monsters, and then I run 5 non-Pendulums, and it's this engine that's been running around, which is the Dark Engine. It's Armageddon Knight, Zephyrus, Shaddoll Dragon, Tuning Magician. So I mainly play this for this card, because Tuning Magician is really great. But, so, Armageddon Knight's obvious, it sends all these. Shaddoll Dragon is a good way to out anything that's a problem, mainly Domain. And the best part about Shaddoll Dragon is if I draw him and I have Sky Iris with him, I can just normal him and pop him with Sky Iris and pop him Spell and Search. Zephyrus just extends plays unless we do rank 4 stuff. So Tuning Magician is the real reason I play this, because Tuning Magician's really good and helps me extend a lot of plays, because I can easily dump this with Armageddon Knight. It's in my graveyard, and I have Magician set up. I can special summon it. If I have an Odd Eyes out, that's an Ignister. Or if I have like level 2 for level 4s out, that's Trishula. And like even with Oath Dragon, I can make Meteor Burst. So there's a lot of things I can do with Tuning Magician, and she comes up a lot, and just like she pressures my opponent into having to respond. So like Tuning Magician alone, I think, is enough reason to play this engine, and it's just overall really versatile and helps address a lot of the deck's problems. So yeah, that's all the monsters. I think it's like 23, which is about the amount I played at the regional. So for spells, I play 3 Pendulum Call, obviously. 3 Upstart. I was originally not playing this just because I had a bunch of extra cards I was playing. I was trying to play Instant Fusion in this deck because I felt like just the versatility of Instant Fusion would let me just do a lot of stuff, but ultimately extra deck space is really tight, and when I was playing Instant Fusion, I was playing a lot of extra rank 4s, And then I just found myself in many situations where I'd be like, wow, if I had this non-rank form extra deck like I did before, I'd be able to do a lot more. So then I said, like, screw it. Like, just having a versatile rank 4 toolbox, I didn't think was worth giving up the versatile everything else that I had. So I cut the instant fusions. And I didn't really know what else to put in their place, so I just put in 3 upstarts again, and they've been helping. And then I was also playing Rafflesia, so I had a Treacherous Trapple in here, but I cut it out when I cut out the instant fusions, and I just put in the 3rd unicorn because I was only playing 2. Yeah. 3 Wavering Eyes, this card is still dumb. Even if like there weren't any other pendulum decks in the game, this is still, it does enough stupid shit that I think it's useful. Even though I don't entirely care for it in Magician because they don't need it, but it's still just a dumb card. 2 Sky Iris and 1 Terraforming for the Sky Iris. 2 Summoner's Art. Especially now with only 1 Skullcrobat, it's really important to get to Dragon Pit, so I would probably never play less than 2 Summoner's Art. Just because that gives you 6 ways to get to Dragon Pit, which is like, before I had 7 ways, which was the excuse me, and the 1 Summoner's Art, the 3 Pits, and the 3 Skullcrobats. But yeah, now it's 2 Summoner's Art, yeah. And then Rhoda Foolish. Rhoda's to search out Armageddon Knight, and Foolish can dump any of the things I can dump with Armageddon Knight, and it can also dump Noble Dragon Magician, so that's where it comes in there. And that's all the spells. That's the entire deck. There's no traps, because I don't think this deck needs traps. And Extra Deck it's changed quite a bit since my regional deck profile. I cut down to 1 Absolute Dragon, because like I said, I never played the second one. Like, I never found myself in a situation where I needed the second one. 1 Rebellion for Cosmo out. 1 Ebon Illusion Magician. This guy still comes up. Like, yeah. 1 Big Eye. I've actually thought about cutting Big Eye because he doesn't come up that much. I'm actually thinking that when Utopia the Lightning comes out, I'm going to cut him and something else for Utopia the Lightning. I just haven't figured out what the second thing I'm going to cut is, but I really don't make Big Eye that often. 1 Naruto. I wasn't going to cut this because I never play it, and then tonight I was in a situation where I was like, wow, if I have Naruto, I can just make a stupid-ass play, and then I made Naruto and made a stupid-ass play. And then I was like, okay, maybe I should keep Naruto. 1 Utopia Beyond because lots of damage is fun. And then 1 Dweller, 1 Castel, 1 Evil Soul Nightmare, 1 Trapeze Magician. This is kind of different from the rank 4s I played before. I still played 4 rank 4s in the past, but I cut out Majester and Queen Dragoonjin because those were the 2 I went into least often. And then I put in Dweller because Dweller's really good now. And then Nightmare because the Dark Engine makes it really easy for me to make this. But this will probably eventually become Giant Hand when we get that reprint because Giant Hand's better. And that's all the Xyz monsters. And then Synchros, I play 1 Trishula because Tuning Magician plus level 4s means I can drop this easily. And just the threat of Trishula is enough to scare people. So, like, in case they, like, call me on my bluff and they're like, oh, you don't really have Trishula? I'd be like, no, screw you, I actually have Trishula. So, yeah. 2 Ignister, because, so, the idea is that I would use Tuning Magician with Odd Eyes to make the first Ignister. That Ignister would summon Luster, and I would pop Luster for Ignister's effect, and then next turn Pendulum summon into the other Ignister. So, yeah. 1 Meteor Burst. I wanted to still play 2, because there were still a few times where I did make the 2 Meteor Burst, but overall I really only ever make it once, so it's fine. And then 1 Vortex to summon off of Absolute. And that's the extra deck. As I said, the only thing I would change is I'd cut Big Eye and something else for Utopia and Utopia the Lightning. Maybe cut Nightmare? I don't know. Nightmare just seems good on paper, so I don't know. This is a side deck. This is still a work in progress. I haven't tested this at all. This is just like theory that I built in like 5 minutes. It's like 1 Dragon Pulse just to deal with stuff like Vanity's Fiend. Just an extra 1. 3 Veiler for going second against Monarch and Atlantean. 2 Fog King. So I figure if I'm going first against Monarch, I can like Pendulum summon like either 2 or like a big monster and then just tribute summon Fog King and just like screw you. I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about just playing Monster Floodgates like that. 2 Subblocker. This served me well at the regional, so I think it's still got some use, especially in this deck where I can just special summon it. 2 Vanity's Fiend. So the same idea as Cyblocker, just against like mirror matches or like Cosmo. I can just Pendulum Summon and then drop Vanity's Fiend. And then 2 System Down also for Cosmo, especially now that they dump a lot of stuff into their graveyard for Call the Haunted. System Down just screws them even more. I also got rid of my Chimera to Fortress Dragon, so I can't Cyber Dragon anymore. 2 Twin Twisters. I was debating between this and MST, because you don't really want to discard a lot in this deck. The only reliable discards are like the stuff I would dump with Armageddon Knight and then like Noble Dragon. And so I wanted to do MST instead, but Twin Twister is just so much stronger, especially in games 2 and 3 when you're likely to hit even more floodgates. So I feel like Twin Twister is more important. And then the last card I saw is Skill Drain against everything that's not the Mirror or Cosmo, because Skill Drain is a savage card, and I don't care because all my monsters are big. So, yeah, that's the entire deck. After, like, weeks upon weeks of just losing to Monarchs and just, like, being pissed because, like, oh, I can't. It's like I'm having trouble dealing with Domain. I was like, screw it. I'll just play a deck that's Engine can deal with Domain, which was Magician. So I was like, I've played this deck before. I really liked it. It didn't really get nerfed aside from losing 2 Skulker Bats, so it's still pretty consistent in my opinion. And I don't really see a lot of people talking about this deck. Like, even when I look at like DGZ, they're trying a bunch of like crazy engines, like the Armageddon Knight engine. I agree with that because Tuning Magician is really good. But I think people like do the Speedroid stuff, which I guess I see applications, but I feel like it's trying to do too much. I don't know. I could be wrong, but like, it's good. I think people sleep on this deck. It might be a top tier deck. I don't know. We'll find out. I don't even know if I'm going to ARG Richmond anymore, but if I do, I might play this. If not, I'd probably play Monarch. But yeah. So yeah. Thanks for watching, YouTube. I'll see you next time, deuces.